So, I have a problem, but I think I have the tools and skills to fix it. When my daughter's playing in her mobile crib, it's pretty boring in there for her. Her toys have these little loops, but unfortunately, there isn't anywhere to hang them. I think the best solution is to create a toy bar that spans the width of the crib with places to hang her toys. Most good projects start with a little measuring. I want to get the width from the center of each bar and the thickness of each bar. This should be a good little project to introduce myself to YouTube and flex a few of my skills. I picked up some 1-inch oak dowel from my local hardware store. It should be more than strong enough for this little project, and looks pretty great too. Next, I'll jump into CAD to design a part to secure each end of the dowel to the crib. I want to avoid sharp corners, and I decided a 3D printed part should be plenty strong. I could look online for an existing design, but it should be easy enough to just do it myself. There are a lot of great free CAD applications, and I highly recommend any DIYer try their hand at least one. I learned 2D CAD back in high school and took a few courses in college, so I'm certainly no expert when it comes to 3D, but I can get the job done with enough time. Let's skip ahead to getting this into my 3D slicer. This is the program that tells the 3D printer how to produce the part. I've already separated the part into two pieces using a dovetail cut. This was to make sure I could minimize the amount of supports and ensure that the part would be strong in the right directions. When designing parts for a 3D printer, it's important to remember that the Z-axis, where each layer sits upon each other, is the weakest dimension. Unfortunately, that means that my dovetail is going to have to be on the Z-axis on one half of this part. If I were to redesign this, I would make the dovetail larger and with a little bit more tolerance to compensate for this issue. I'm pretty new to 3D printing, and just like any tool, it takes a bit of time to learn its pros and cons, and little quirks to get the most out of it. After that learning curve, there's the jump from printing others' designs to making your own. Once you make that leap, the possibilities are endless. This test print used purple PLA, and it was just the material I had loaded from a previous project. PLA should work for the final parts too, but I would like to use a brighter color that's a little bit more suited for a child. The supports fell away really easily, but the dovetail was rather tight. I really should have designed larger tolerances to account for this. I really should play around with the dovetail setting in the 3D slicer. I'm positive that there's a way to add more tolerance to make sure that these parts slide together easier. If I design a version 2, I'm definitely going to make sure that I can put these together by hand. Luckily, I have just the tool to persuade the parts together. I'm always worried when I have to force together 3D prints like this. Luckily, nothing broke, and the friction fit made for a nice sturdy part. I really like the aesthetics of this part, but I definitely need to check that it's going to fit the dowel and on the edge of the crib. I was aiming for a loose friction fit, and this was perfect. I don't want to glue it together because I'll inevitably end up designing another version. Plus, if anything breaks down the road, it'll be easy enough to pop off this piece and replace it with a new one. The last check I need to do before assembling the main structure is to ensure it will fit onto the crib bars tightly, but can pop off with a reasonable amount of force. This worked the first time, which is rather surprising. Usually I have to iterate a few times before I'm happy with a part. I quickly printed up 2 bar holders in grass green PLA. I think this will be a good color, but if you think another material or color might work better, let me know in the comments. I'm using the exact same design as last time with no revisions, so this will need to go together with a little bit of encouragement just like before. Off screen, I did disassemble these parts and add a few drops of CA glue to make sure that the dovetail didn't slide apart from lateral movements. Moving the dovetail 180 degrees as well as making it bigger is a huge improvement that I would make to version 2. But this works for now. Between time of recording this video and doing voiceover, I did end up breaking one of the parts. While child-proofing my living room, I leaned a little too hard onto the crib and ended up snapping one of these parts right at the dovetail. I'm really pleased that I had the foresight to make these easily removable. Currently, that purple test version is taking place of the broken green one. Looks like I'll be redesigning this part sooner than later. Next, I need to cut that oak dowel to length. There's a little bit of wiggle room here. I just need to be close enough. I measure and mark the cut. I should have used just about any other saw that I had, but this one happened to be in my office at the time. The blade was too loose and too dull to be effective. I did grab my oscillating multi-tool off screen, but even that blade was dull and didn't do much other than singe the end. I should have just gone down to the basement and cut it with a real saw. Here I finally got through the dowel. Rest assured, I have since purchased new sharp blades and a whole new hacksaw altogether. With the dowel cut to size, I can apply a finish. This was the first time I tried this particular beeswax and orange oil finish. I wanted to keep the finish fairly natural. In hindsight, I would probably end up using this brand again, but their specific finish formulated for cutting boards. On the first application, my cloth was getting snagged and leaving lint in a few places. Off screen, I resanded the dowel and reapplied the finish, and it turned out much better. After applying a few more coats and letting it dry, I could test the bar and the bar holders all together on the crib. It snapped right into place and fit perfectly. I couldn't be more pleased with how this was turning out so far. Unfortunately, we aren't quite done yet. I still need something to wrap around the bar to hang the toys on. Something that hangs down but won't be a hazard if she pulls too hard. So I grabbed some 1-inch cotton webbing with some sew-in Velcro. It should be easy enough to make a loop on one end that slips onto the bar and Velcro on the other to hook the toys on. I had a good idea of the lengths I wanted to use, but I wasn't being overly precious with it. I try not to be a perfectionist with these projects, as I can get lost in the details rather quickly, even if that means that I have to redo something down the road. The design for these hangers were heavily inspired by a play gym that my daughter has upstairs. No use in trying to reinvent the wheel here. Sewing is pretty far outside of my comfort zone still. I'm much more comfortable turning wrenches under cars or sitting behind a keyboard, but it's a very useful skill, and I'm a big advocate for that when it comes to learning something new. It's good to be a little uncomfortable sometimes. If you're more experienced at sewing and cringe a little bit at this section, I know, I'm learning, and I'm also very happy for some constructive advice. One thing I've noticed about collecting skills is once you have enough, you can start linking them together and seeing similarities, and more often than not, you can start to apply familiar techniques to help you speed up the process of learning them. But even if you can't, at the end you'll have pushed yourself and learned a little bit of resilience and proved that even if it was intimidating at first, you did it anyway. Before learning to sew, I had no idea that all the clothing we wear is sewn by people with very little automation. This led me down a little bit of a rabbit hole in which I stumbled upon the art installation called The Human Touch by Juliet Zager. She had tailors cover their hands with black ink and construct garments. By the end, the once white shirts were covered in black fingerprints and stains, and almost monochrome tie-dye. Although the textile industry is still rife with poor working conditions, it amazes me that in the day of AI and automation, there are still many things that require skilled artisans and the human touch. To save you from any more tangents and having to watch any more of my slow sewing, let's go ahead and skip forward. Here is my first finish hanger. It feels nice and strong, the loop works well, and most of all the Velcro is sturdy and should hold the toys just fine. And bam, 3 more to make 4. Let's attach these to the bar and get some toys on there. I was surprised just how many of her toys have loops just for this sort of thing. I'm pretty glad I made all the straps all different lengths. This will keep the different sized toys at the right height without hanging too low. Finally, I can say this little project is done for now. It was a quick and perfect way for me to introduce myself here on YouTube, as well as learn new skills in videography, video editing, and voiceover. But the real verdict of whether this is a success is if my daughter likes it and it keeps her a little bit more entertained while in her travel crib. It seems pretty clear that she loves it, and that makes me very happy. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll be back with other projects in the future.